Hello everyone, this lecture is about fertilization. The process of fusion of sperm with ovum is called fertilization, right? So how exactly the fusion of the gametes, like male gamete called sperm and the female gamete called ovum, takes place? There are different events. So let us find out what are those events that leads to the process of fertilization. Fine. So first we talk about the releasing of ovum, and then we'll find out how exactly the sperm direct their way towards the fallopian tube to fertilize the ovum, right? So this is the female reproductive tract, this is the uterus, and this is the fallopian tube, right? So this part of the fallopian tube is called as the infundibulum with ostium, and there are several fimbriae. Fine. Now inside the ovary there are follicles at various stages of development. So this follicle, I mean, there are primary, secondary follicles and tertiary follicles and so on. This is a Graafian follicle. Graafian follicle ruptures and releases ovum by process called ovulation. Fine. What are the ovum that is released? The ovum is called secondary oocyte. Now the fimbriae of the fallopian tube capture or grasp the secondary oocyte or ovum. Now actually secondary oocyte or ovum is non-motile. So this non-motile secondary oocyte or ovum directs its way to the ampullary region. This is because of the peristalsis that is taking place inside the fallopian tube. So these peristaltic movements makes this ovum to move towards the ampullary region of the fallopian tube, right? So ovum cannot move by itself because there are several forces which make this ovum to move. The columnar ciliate epithelium is also one of the a reason for the movement of the ovum towards the ampullary region of the fallopian tube. Fine. Now ovum reaches to the fallopian tube, that is ampulla of the fallopian tube. Now the sperm has to reach. If both ovum and sperm reaches simultaneously, then only there is a chances of fertilization. Otherwise the chance of fertilization are almost nil. So every copulation do not result in fertilization, right? So fertilization, the chance of fertilizations are those when both sperm and ovum reaches simultaneously, right? Now during copulation, sperms are inseminated. Sperms are inseminated at the vagina of the female. So remember, these are all the sperms. There are sperms like million sperms, 200 to 300 million sperms are released into the vagina of the female, right? Vagina of the female, right, during copulation. Fine. Now once the sperms are released, along with the sperm there is semen. Semen is released. Now just little bit we'll talk about the semen. Semen includes the secretions of glands as well as the sperms. Now what are the main important glands here? So first, most of the contribution of the semen is by seminal vesicles, right? So 60 to 70% semen includes the secretions of the seminal vesicles, and the secretions of the seminal vesicles includes some important components like fructose. Next, prostaglandins. The one more interesting enzyme is coagulase. Next, along with seminal vesicles, 30 to 40% contribution of the semen is by your prostate gland. Prostate gland. Prostate gland secretions, the important secretion of prostate gland includes citrate and fibrinolysins. Listen, the secretions of this, they have some role for the sperm to move, for the sperm to activate. This is acrosome of the sperm. This is the double membrane, the acrosome of the sperm. Fine. Now this is the middle piece of the sperm which has mitochondria. This mitochondria produces energy from ATP. So how sperm gets ATP? Sperm get ATP from your fructose and as well as from citrate. So the contribution of your fructose and citrate is production of ATP. Fine. Next, once the sperms are inseminated into the vagina of the female, so sperm need to conserve energy. So some of the sperms attaches to the or gets struck to the wall of the vagina, right? So because of an enzyme called coagulase, this is to conserve energy. Now with the release of fibrinolysin secretions, this coagulated sperm mass gets dissolved and sperm becomes free and they start swimming towards the uterus. Fine. Now how exactly motility of the sperm? Now when you talk about the motility of the sperm in the vagina is very, very less, because vaginal fluids are highly acidic. So this is the most unfriendly environment for the sperm. Many of the sperms, what are those 3 million sperms that are produced by a normal healthy male? Many of the sperms will die in the acidic medium, because a highly unfriendly environment for the sperm is vagina. Once the sperms cross the vagina from the cervix, enter into the uterus, right? So uterus maintains alkaline medium. This is alkaline medium is maintained into the uterus, right? So uterus is a friendly environment where the movement of the sperm increases in the uterine wall. Fine. Now there is one more contribution for the semen to make this movement. What are they? See, there are prostaglandins. These prostaglandins, look, this is prostaglandin. All these are prostaglandins that are present in the semen. Now these prostaglandins make some specific contractions in the uterine wall which makes the sperms to suck in. Are you following? So what are all these sperms that are released in the vagina of the female, right? So from the vagina, once they cross the cervix, enters into the uterus, these prostaglandins that are present in the seminal vesicles, secretional seminal vesicles, will make the sperms, and they'll make the peristalsis to happen and suck the sperms, right? Now the sperm movement starts towards the fallopian tube, right? Fine. Now what are all those sperms, those million sperms that are produced in the vagina? Very few of them, like few in hundreds, right, reach the sperms are reaching all along their way to the ovum. Fine. Sperms reach all along their way to the ovum. Fine. Now once the sperm reaches to the ovum, what changes takes place? There are two chemical changes that are taking place in the female reproductive tract which makes the sperm to fertilize the ovum. Fine. So let us find out what are these two changes that happens in the to the sperm in the female reproductive tract. Right. The first change is what we are calling it as, number one, capacitation of sperm. Sperm capacitation. So first we talk about what exactly capacitation. Then the second one is acrosomal changes. Capacitation and acrosomal changes are the two changes that takes place in the female reproductive system for the sperm. Fine. So what exactly the capacitation? Listen, I'll just make the sperm in this way. This is the middle piece of the sperm. This is a tail. This is the acrosomal cap. This is acrosome. This is acrosome of the sperm, right? Now, once the sperms are released, this acrosome of the sperm is surrounded by specific glycoproteins. What are all this? There are specific glycoproteins are present. Now, along with glycoproteins, some green things, what I'm making them is cholesterol. This is called cholesterol. So, acrosome of the sperm during capacitation, first we'll talk about capacitation. During capacitation, the acrosome of the sperm is with specific glycoproteins and cholesterol is present on the complete acrosome. If these glycoproteins and cholesterol are present in the acrosome, such sperm with the glycoprotein and cholesterol cannot fertilize the ovum, cannot reach the ovum membrane of the ovum. So, once the sperm enters into the female reproductive tract, the uterine fluids, uterus of the female reproductive tract secretes some specific enzymes, and these enzymes will dissolve will remove the glycoproteins and cholesterol. So, make the acrosome, that is head of the sperm, clean. This is called as washing of the sperm head. Sperm head is washed, right? So, this the only double membrane acrosomal layer can be seen. So, this is what we call capacitation. Fine. And also, one more specialty in capacitation is that the calcium influx takes place into the sperm that makes the movement of the sperm much faster. Clear? Fine. Like one more interesting thing. How much time the sperm takes to move it? Sperm with its influx of calcium and all, sperm can move a distance of 1.5 to 3 millimeter per minute. This is a speed. So, sperm takes nearly 40 minutes to reach the ampulla of the fallopian tube with this speed. Are you following? So, even the fastest sperm can also make its way in 5 to 7 minutes. That's a different story. But a sperm takes minimum, like it's the 40-45 minutes to reach all the way from the vagina to the ampullary region of the fallopian tube. So, once it enters into the female reproductive tract, this capacitation of the sperm takes place. Clear? Now, so always remember, only the capacitated sperms only can fertilize the ovum. If the sperms are not, if they do not undergo capacitation, fertilization does not happen. Remember, that's the reason why in vitro fertilization, the sperms, the freshly taken sperms cannot fertilize the ovum. So they need to be placed in a specific enzymes where the glycoprotein layers are removed, then such sperms are used for fertilizing the ovum. So remember, the sperms, unless and until they undergo capacitation, there is no fertilization. Fine. Now this is called washing or cleaning of the head of the like acrosome of the sperm takes place, which is called capacitation. Fine. Now all the way after capacitation, then is your acrosomal changes. Right? Fine. Now all the way sperm comes near to the ovum. So to make it very clear, I just have done an enlarged diagram of the ovum. This is ovum, secondary oocyte. So remember, it has not completed second maturation division. It's only first maturation division is completed. Second maturation division is not yet completed. Now this is ovum. This is the cytoplasm of the ovum. Right? All these are from outside granulosa cells. All these are granulosa cells. Granulosa cells. Right? So these are the cells called corona radiata. The blue ones are corona radiata. Next, this is the layer which is called zona pellucida. This is zona pellucida. And what are this green layer that you can see? This is actually the membrane of the ovum. This is called membrane of the ovum. This is the membrane of ovum. Clear? Now we'll find out how exactly the sperm penetrates and reaches, and what are these acrosomal changes that are taking place for this sperm. Fine. Now, for a simplicity, I'm just rubbing a few parts over here. So look. When the sperm reaches to the corona radiata and granular cells, when sperm touches this membrane, this is called zona pellucida. This is zona pellucida is with some specific receptors. There are some specific receptors are present on the zona pellucida. Many are there, like this, all the specific receptors are present, and these specific receptors of the zona pellucida are called ZP3 receptors. So type 3 ZP3 receptors are present on the zona pellucida. Fine. Now, when once the sperm reaches to the ZP3 receptors or to the zona pellucida, so look, what all these two membranes, that is, remember, acrosome of the sperm is with double membrane, two membranes. This membrane dissolves little bit. Now it starts producing enzymes. What enzymes? It secretes or it produces enzymes like acrosin. Acrosin is nothing but, it's called as zona lysins. Zona lysins, acrosin. And it produces one more enzyme which is called hyaluronidase. Find this hyaluronidase enzyme helps in removal of any of the granular cells present or corona radiata cells and all those things. Now acrosin. Look, when once the sperm touches the ZP3 receptors, the perforations are made in the zona pellucida. With the help of acrosin, right? So this layer of zona pellucida will be removed, dissolved at that site. When it is dissolved, now the sperm touches the membrane of the ovum. Sperm touches the membrane of the ovum. When the sperm touches the membrane of the ovum, right? So imagine there are many sperms, like millions of the sperms are produced here. So out of those million sperms, only few hundred sperms reaches. These are, many sperms. Here also there are sperms. Everywhere there are sperms. All the sperms are present, many sperms. This is the first sperm that touches the membrane of the ovum. When the first sperm that touches the membrane of the ovum, so here the sodium channels will get open in the ovum membrane. So there will be an influx of sodium through this. Due to this influx of sodium, right, inside the membrane of the ovum is positively charged, entire, right? So this is called, listen this carefully, this is called first depolarization. This depolarization of the membrane of the ovum does not allow the next sperm to touch. This is nothing but to prevent polyspermy. This is called fast block. What is this? Fast block. So when the sperm touches the membrane of the ovum, when it crosses the zona pellucida, dissolve the zona pellucida by using acrosin, and when it crosses the zona pellucida and touches the membrane of the ovum, immediately the sodium channels will get open and there will be sodium influx takes place inside the ovum that results in depolarization, which prevents the entry of further sperms, which is called fast block, right? The next sperm cannot enter. This is to prevent polyspermy. Fine. Now sperm, dissolves it and enters inside. Sperm enters inside. Sperm enters inside. When the sperm enters inside, inside the ovum, in the cytoplasm of the ovum are present endoplasmic reticulum, and this endoplasmic reticulum releases calcium. Now there are several cortical granules are present inside. Cortical granules, all these are cortical granules are present inside the cytoplasm. These are all called cortical granules. Cortical granules. Now, with the release of this calcium, all the cortical granules will start moving towards the surface of the membrane of the ovum. And these cortical granules secrete enzymes, and these enzymes completely, these enzymes will completely lyse the receptors present on the zona pellucida to prevent polyspermy. This is called the second event. I'm just making here. This is called cortical, because the cortical granules are released, and these in the cytoplasm of the ovum, the cortical granules inside the cytoplasm of the ovum produces enzymes which dissolve the receptors of the zona, which is called cortical and zona reactions, so that when all the receptors of the zona are completely dissolved, removed, then the next sperm cannot identify where is the ovum, how to penetrate, right? So this is called cortical and zona reactions will prevent polyspermy. This is called slow block. So fast block called depolarization, and slow block is cortical and zona reactions prevent polyspermy in human. Remember, in human, why not many sperms enter inside? The reason is that there are two events. One is called as the fast block, which is called depolarization, and second one is called cortical and zona reactions called slow block, prevent polyspermy, so that when once one sperm enters the ovum, the chemical changes takes place in the ovum, so that it does not allow the next sperm to enter inside. Fine. These are all called as acrosomal changes. Right? What is it? So first, capacitation takes place, where the glycoproteins and cholesterol present around the acrosome are dissolved, and then once the sperm touches the ZP3 receptors on the zona pellucida, immediately it produces enzymes called acrosin and hyaluronidase, dissolves them and enter into the ovum and touches the ovum membrane. Then depolarization takes place, which all the acrosomal changes. When the depolarization takes place, it prevents the next sperm to enter. This is fast block. Now when the sperm completely go into the ovum, inside the ovum, entire sperm enter inside the ovum, remember, but its membrane is placed outside. The entire sperm enter inside the ovum. When the sperm enter inside the ovum, the endoplasmic reticulum releases calcium ions that stimulate all the cortical granules to move to the surface of the ovum inside, and it will release some specific enzymes. With the help of those enzymes, the receptors on the zona pellucida are completely removed or dissolved, so that the next sperm cannot identify, because now nucleus of the sperm, which is called male pronucleus, right? Imagine this is the ovum, the nucleus. Fine. Now when once the sperm enters inside, it stimulates the second maturation division. Second maturation division. So what is it? This is ovum called secondary oocyte. Ovum secondary oocyte completes its meiosis, that is meiosis 2. So it produces two cells. One is definitive ovum and second is the second polar body. Right? Now this division, this meiosis, already we have discussed that meiosis 1 takes place in the female reproductive tract or in the female reproductive system during the process of like gametogenesis. It takes place and it does not complete second maturation division. Second maturation division of the ovum is done only after the entry of the sperm, right? And the sperm induces this ovum to complete its meiosis 2. In meiosis 2, so this is divided into two haploid cells. One is the definitive ovum and second one is a polar body. Because it receives very less amount of cytoplasm, it no longer divides and their only definitive ovum will remains, which is now called as the female pronucleus. Clear? Now the male pronucleus and female pronucleus fuse, resulting in the formation of zygote, which is diploid, right? So ovum contains haploid set. Ovum contains haploid set with 22 autosomes plus X chromosome, and sperm carries the haploid set with 22 autosomes plus X or Y chromosome. So sex is determined at the time of fertilization. If the sperm carrying X chromosome fertilizes the ovum, it results in female. If the sperm carrying Y chromosome fertilizes the ovum, it results in male. Clear? So these are the events which leads to fertilization, right? Listen, there may be questions like how the polyspermy is prevented. Polyspermy is prevented by depolarization and as well as cortical and zona reactions. Right? Now next, so what do you mean by capacitation? Capacitation is nothing but the cleaning of the head of the sperm, where all the glycoproteins and cholesterol are removed, and also calcium enters into the sperm that makes the motility or lashing movement of the sperm faster, right? So this is what generally happens, and which is the mostly in which phase of the female reproductive tract the sperm motility is very less. In the vagina, because they are acidic, and whereas the motility of the sperm is more in the uterus because uterine fluids are alkaline in nature. So even though there are million sperms are produced, but finally one sperm fertilizes the ovum. That's what we call 1 in million. So every individual is a champion by birth, because everyone is produced with only one sperm out of several millions. Are you following? So that's it. And for later on, this fertilization is followed by post-fertilization changes that results in gastrulation and formation of extra embryonic layers. I'll provide a link in the description box for those two lectures. You can go through them.